Content warning. The subject of the following episode of Killer Score contains references to extremely graphic violence and sexual content. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Killer Score, the podcast that looks at cult classic films with great soundtracks we feel deserve another shake or a look at. Today's episode's going to be an interesting one because I figured summer horror is like a big convention of the genre, especially summer camp. And now's the time people are out at camps and doing stuff, so I'm looking at The Burning from 1981, directed by Tony Maylam, who's mostly known for actually music documentary work and working with musicians, and with a score by Rick Wakeman, the keyboardist of the prog rock band Yes, which some of you probably know for songs like Owner of a Lonely Heart and Roundabout.
Yes.
So this one is actually interesting for many reasons. It was a big flop at the box office. It only made about $700,000 on a budget of like $1.5 million.
Ouch.
There's many reasons it's believed that it was hit hard for that. Production delays pushed the movie back a bit. There was disputes with other films, like another film called Maniac had to get not Maniac. I think it was called like Madman or something like that, had to get pushed back because like film titles and similarities to concepts.
I'll find it in post.
Yeah. I have it saved to my phone. But the point is, this movie was your typical slasher film, and a common misconception about this, the film was called Madman. But a common misconception people have about this movie is that it was made to capitalize off the success of Friday the 13th, which is actually not true. This film was in production before Friday the 13th by I think it's like a year, and it took a little longer.
See, that's funny
wow.
because Friday the 13th was my first immediate thought, my first correlation.
Yeah, because this film was the first. This is where we get into the territory. This film was the first production of the Weinsteins.
Oh, God.
Boo!
Yeah. Basically, the concept was made by Harvey Weinstein himself, who had heard about,
Boo!
who had heard about the Cropsey legends in New York. Aaron, you can do a little spiel about that real quick.
So Cropsey is an urban legend that's based around Staten Island, New York. Basically that there's a man, or it's like a boogeyman kind of thing, that is like, if you misbehave, or like if you do something bad, Cropsey will come get you. Cropsey is sort of kind of based off a real person.
Oh yeah, I have heard that.
Who was a suspected serial killer in the 70s and 80s around Meadowbrook State Institution in Staten Island. If you want more information on that, just go listen to My Favorite Murder.
You see, I joke all the time about stuff any potential sponsors wouldn't touch, but I'm not going to make that joke. I think this whole thing just sort of speaks for itself.
Yeah. I can't find information on why exactly Rick Wakeman had done this. This wasn't his first film score.
What was?
Appropriate enough, it was a biopic that's kind of obscure about Franz Liszt called Listomania that came out in 1975.
Listomania.
Which, wow, that checks out for Rick Wakeman.
Shout out to Phoenix.
But I read that he took a set fee, which was a smart call on his part, because they were like, hey, we could do like some composers do, and you could take a set amount of the film's budget. But Rick just apparently had a gut feeling that the movie wasn't gonna make money.
That tracks.
So he probably made out smartly with this. But
Actually, I have a question. When did Amadeus come out?
80s.
80s? Okay, never mind.
So it came out after this. That's
yeah.
That
I
was
was wondering if they were trying to like do something trying to do like, hey, we're doing a movie on Liszt since Amadeus was popular, but it's the other way around.
Yeah.
That was Tom Holtz there as Amadeus. Quasimodo from
Yeah.
Hunchback of
Disney
Notre Dame?
Hunchback.
Yeah.
Disney. Yes.
But anyway, yeah, this film was also famous for being it became a cult classic over the years. A lot of the reasons it's believed to have been a flop at the time was like it just came out at the wrong time. There was after Friday the 13th came out, there was a glut of films like Friday the 13th.
I wouldn't be surprised if each and every one of us has a candidate for this show from the slasher genre. You have The Burning.
Mm-hmm.
I'm half tempted to bring Terror Train onto here because that is a interesting little can of worms in and of itself.
I have a lot of horror movies to choose from. Some of them are slashers, some are not. I'll have to narrow it down.
I'm fine with every one of them as long as one of them is not Sleepaway Camp.
Nope.
But yeah, this film would also feature people who would go on to be stars. Famously, it's the screen debut of some actors like Jason Alexander, actress Holly Hunter, and it also features Fisher Stevens. Yeah, a lot of people thought that this film was made because, Friday the 13th, but it was actually just low-budget horror in general that had gotten popular. Specifically, the production crew and Weinstein said, they saw, how successful, Texas Chainsaw Massacre had been. And they were like, okay, there's clearly a market.
And then Harvey Weinstein did absolutely nothing notable after that.
Yeah. But sadly, his creepiness did begin here. He had apparently made some actresses uncomfortable because he was just kind of lurking during nude scenes. And
does anyone else?
Gross.
Yeah.
Does anyone else feel the need to take a shower with hydrochloric acid after this?
Yeah.
Yes.
He apparently exposed himself to someone on involved with the film and asked for a massage.
Did I say hydrochloric acid? I meant a whole tub of it.
Yeah. But outside of that, the film was just production was kind of smooth, kind of not. There were typical issues you'd have of any production.
Kind of like previous subject Phantom of the Paradise.
Yeah. Savini agreed to do it because he could do this. Tom Savini, the famous special effects director who had worked in horror before.
Night of the Living Dead.
No.
And
Nope.
it was
Not involved with Night of the Living Dead.
just Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah, Dawn of the Dead. No, also wrong. He was also involved with Day of the Dead.
Damn it.
But this was pre-Day of the Dead.
He out-zombied me.
Yeah, he did the effects on Night of the Living Dead and Friday the 13th famously, and he actually could choose between doing the effects for this or Friday the 13th Part 2, but he chose this over Part 2 because he liked the initial script for The Burning better, and he had issues with the script of Part 2 of Friday the 13th. Mainly, he really wasn't a fan of the whole Jason thing. He was like, how does a child become a grown man?
If he drowned as a child.
He just, the script confused him. He thought it wasn't very good.
Hell logic.
Yeah, I could get where he was coming from at one hand. He put a lot of work into the child Jason makeup, so I totally get it.
That's the thing with Tom Savini. Legend, obviously.
Yeah.
But something that I always found funny about him was his weird kind of vacillating fixation on consistency. You ever notice that about Tom Savini? He had a habit of saying, I can believe this, but this...
Yeah, well, Tom's a man of composure. He's a man of conviction. I get it. He, literally, has certain issues with certain things, and everyone's got little
Everyone
hang-ups.
does.
Yeah.
And he's still awesome.
Oh, yeah. No, and him and Rick Wakeman are honestly what make this film.
I mean, the dude is so cool that he could maintain that image while blasting apart vampires with a penis gun.
Yeah. But he was...
I feel like I've seen that in a movie somewhere.
Yeah, he was referencing, why am I blanking?
From Dusk Till
Yeah,
Dawn.
From Dusk Till Dawn.
Totally
God.
doesn't have vampires in it, by the way.
So,
Yes, it does.
Fuck you.
So, yeah, he had his own issues with the movie when he started production. Apparently, he had to rush some makeup work, so he wasn't very happy about that. He also got in fights with the director because the director didn't like Tom's makeup work for the Cropsey character. And Tom was like, I had to rush this. And you wanted me to give you a makeup design in 3 days. And he apparently just had some tiffs with the director. Another one was they had to rewrite the ending of the movie. It was originally going to be set in a boathouse for the big finale before being brought over to like an abandoned mine they had found. They changed it from the boathouse to the mine because they were worried about the safety of the boathouse due to the fact that the boathouse had bats in it.
I was also gonna say, in the original Amityville Horror, there's a big, like, scene in a boathouse, too.
Yeah. Well, that had nothing to do with it. They were mostly like, I don't know if it's safe to be filming around these bats.
Man,
Fair
how bad must that have been for a mine to be safer?
Yeah. Well, yeah, apparently it was a former copper mine from what I could read. But they found the mine while they were filming and they were like, oh, this is cool. We checked it out. It looks stable. Let's film there. You know, it was very by the seat of your pants filmmaking. Tom was ticked off because they asked him, apparently, reportedly, he says Malem asked him to help rewrite the ending, and he's like, that's not my job, you figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, so,
That's like having the makeup designer go like, hey, write the ending.
yeah.
Tom Savini is a lot of things. A charismatic actor when you need him, a masterful crafter of special effects. A writer, though?
No.
Yeah, he actually said he really enjoyed some stuff on this movie, but overall, like, he did have issues making it.
And from what I can tell, this is probably the first installment of Killer Score, at least according to Dalton, where the subject is not necessarily great, but important. Kind of like if my Explorers episode had a bit less rose-tinted glasses.
Yeah, because now one of the reasons I chose to cover this is I found it very interesting that a prog rock keyboardist did the score for a horror film. It's one of the earlier cases I can find of like, like a guy who's mainly known for being a music dude of like, pop and rock and stuff like that doing a film score. It's more common nowadays, but definitely was less common in the 80s.
Yeah, because nowadays you have things like the members of Radiohead doing film scores.
Yeah. Or, Trent Reznor, yeah.
So this was sort of a precursor to the
that trend, yeah.
rock musician does film score thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, there had been other instances, like, of course, Dario Argento loved using Goblin.
In a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Elton John doing scores for everything.
Yeah. And, of course, later you would have guys like Phil Collins doing that kind of stuff. They brought on a lot of big music industry people for Miami Vice to help, like, make the film, to make the show,
Yeah, that tracks.
Yeah. But this was, like, a precursor to a lot of that. And there is some good stuff on this film. I'm not going to say it's entirely bad. This film's very famous for a lot of people consider to be one of the most brutal and just hardcore slasher scenes ever. And it might have been one of the reasons this film didn't do too well in the theaters. It got pushed back because they had to take out the most famous scene of the movie and heavily cut it down, which was the raft murder scene.
For this episode of Killer Score, we are going to be viewing it on Shudder, from what I can tell.
Yeah.
Did that scene make it into that version?
Yes, it was restored in later cuts of the film. It's actually one of the reasons a lot of people believe this film has a cult following is because of that raft murder scene. It made it onto the infamous video Nasties.
Oh,
For those of you unaware, the UK during the Thatcher administration had created a thing called video Nasties, which were like films that they thought were morally repugnant.
Think of the Tipper Gore censorship campaign, but in the UK.
And basically certain films got slapped with a tag for when they were sold at video stores and rental places called video Nasties. Had to ask behind the counter for them, and in general it was like, oh, this is very taboo stuff. Funny enough, some films made it on the video Nasties just based on title or concept alone and weren't actually that bad films. Like there was like a horror film from the 50s that Kate Bush actually sampled in one of her songs. I think it's called like Night of the Demon. Yeah, Night of the Demon.
Yeah.
Yeah. That film is gotten a lot of shout outs and references over the years. One of the lyrics and bless you in the cult classic film Rocky Horror Picture Show references Night of the Demon.
Oh yeah.
There's like a plot line that's like thrown in the song that's from Night of the Demon.
Oh yeah.
But point is, this film got like a reputation over the years, and people also just went back because, you know, they'd be fans of certain actors or actresses who appeared in it. I'm forgetting his name right now, but one of the actors on this went to be on just 1 year later in Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Oh, it's gonna kill me.
So, of course, people were like, oh my god, he was in this movie before. When Jason Alexander's comedy career took off, people were like, oh, he was in a horror film? I gotta check that out. So yeah, we're gonna get into it. This film's, it's okay, in my opinion. Let's see how we feel after we watch it. Hey, we're back. Yeah, that was a movie.
It was a movie.
It was a movie that existed.
Same kind of thoughts as I had before the first time, you know, like, oh, yeah, no, some pretty cool kills. Yeah. Score. I will say one thing, the score is very good.
Fantastic, honestly.
Yeah, it's the best part about this movie, along with Jason Alexander. I'm glad he lived to the end.
Yeah.
I don't care about spoilers with this one.
Yeah. Oh no, spoilers! I don't believe it!
Yeah.
Oh no, spoilers in a slasher movie?
Yeah, shocker. Some people live, some people die.
I am so blown away, dude.
I found out the company that distributed this, because like it says Miramax on the credits, but Miramax hadn't been created yet. They had to use like an outside distribution company.
Yeah, Miramax was just like a retrospective.
Yeah, yeah. But like, it was like a company that got bought up by Orion, and later Miramax bought out Orion after Orion went under. Because like, not a lot of people know this. You know what actually killed Orion Pictures? Really?
Streamline?
UHF.
Really?
Yeah, because they invested a lot of money into UHF, and they were like not doing great financially, and they released it at a very busy summer.
Oh.
Because UHF came out in the summer of 1989.
Yep.
Oh boy.
Doomed.
Batman kind of killed everything.
Yeah, and didn't also
Raiders also came out. No, I mean Last Crusade also came out in the summer of '89. So
didn't Little Mermaid come out in summer of '89?
Probably.
Yep.
So yeah, it had no chance. But you know, if we hadn't already seen that, I'd love to have covered that on the show. But we've already seen UHF.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go watch UHF instead of this, honestly.
Yeah.
If nothing else, take that away. Watch UHF. It's great.
I mean, there's like maybe a couple things you might cringe at UHF, but you'll probably have a better time with that than you will with this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of, his thoughts are basically mine. It's a slasher movie with a really awesome synth score and a couple of cool kills, and not much else to recommend about it, really. Those kills, by the way, are gonna take you some time to get to, because the pacing is a little weird. I mean, there's suspense, and then
there's this.
Speaking of which, Aaron, what did you think?
It's not the worst slasher I've seen.
Yeah, it also just released against a summer of stacked horror slashers. Like,
yeah.
This was right when the glut was starting to start of slasher films, so like...
Yeah, because this came out in '81, right?
Yeah, and it came out literally a week after Friday the 13th Part 2 did.
Yep. Because the thing is, I've seen quite a few... not quite a few. I've seen a good amount of Flasher. God, no.
I am not.
No.
That's a different genre of film.
I'm not editing that image in.
Please don't. No. I've seen quite a few slasher movies. I've seen a good amount. I've seen some really, really bad ones. this isn't, I wouldn't put on the same par as a really, really bad slasher movie. I just say it's kind of eh. Like, there's some scenes, like, there's some kills that are like, oh, this is interesting, but the kills themselves aren't that creative, in my opinion, because it's the same thing over and over again.
Not to mention, some of them are just not really filmed all that well.
No,
they're not shot well.
Like, the raft scene...
The raft scene is the highlight. Like, every other murder is, like, shot in really poorly lit conditions.
Poorly lit, and it overuses close-ups so many goddamn times in that one scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like I said, it had stiff competition. It actually was, yeah, because literally, when it screened in Buffalo, the two top grossing movies were slashers. The somewhat forgotten, successful slasher film, Happy Birthday to Me.
I've seen that.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. I haven't.
That came out like a month before that, like a month or two before, and was just doing really well in Buffalo. And Friday the 13th Part 2 had just come out, and it was like in second behind it. And according to stuff, it came in at like 23 that week.
Ooh.
So yeah, it wasn't helped that, you know, you were going up against properties, you were going up against more well-known directors. From what I can tell, they also didn't seem to lean into the fact in marketing that they had a successful, like, rock musician doing the score, which, like...
Yeah, I don't know why they wouldn't have marketed that.
Yeah, that seems like a missed opportunity.
That said, I would like to once again state for the record that score is really something. As Dalton and I were discussing in the middle of screening, it is certainly evocative of typical 80s slasher scores, but it's not quite as bombastic. And
yeah.
It has more of a focus on dread and on atmosphere.
Honestly, if anything, the score reminds me more of Italian giallo film scores.
Yeah.
I can hear that.
Yeah, like Goblin.
Yeah, it sounded a lot more like a giallo flick score, and I love me some giallo flick scores, so, like, yeah, it's interesting.
Like, as we'll get into, the characters in this movie range from semi-amusing to downright unbearable, but even the unbearable characters' deaths become kind of harrowing when paired with that score, because that score just makes you feel like you're in the midst of a massacre.
Yeah, unless it's the character of Glazier's death, which is just so poorly shot, you don't even know how it happens,
like,
really. It's
you don't even know what's getting cut or what's getting punctured.
Like, I understand shooting in darkness for, like, effect, but you also have to make a seeable film for your audience to enjoy it. Like, just put on the lighting a bit during a kill scene so the audience can, you know,
watch them die.
Yeah. Because I know, you know, horror, fear of the unknown, it's more effective. What you don't see is sometimes more scary. But they paid for a slasher movie. They want to see the blood. They want to see the gore.
I mean, yeah, like, it's not fucking Guillermo del Toro, which, by the way, you need his kind of precision if you want to pull off the fear of the unknown thing.
Yeah.
Which this movie does not have.
No. And another issue with this film is just, like, it's cliched. It takes way too long to get to the kills, and you can really tell that, like, this was a first script of someone.
Yeah, this has rough draft written all over it.
It does.
Yeah, there's leaps of logic. There's, like, okay, how did point A get to point B? Where did that come from? None of this has been set up before.
None of the characters talk like normal human beings.
No.
They just their mood is dictated by the direction of the story.
Yeah, there's a lot of, like, awkward line reads that reek of, like, yeah, good enough. Cool.
Or,
you know what it feels like? It feels like they own the reason because I've seen this in movies before, that the reason why all the takes are so, like, all the line reads are so bad is because, like, okay, we got, like, 20 minutes here, we gotta do it, and let's go.
Yeah, it's the sort of thing that you'd usually expect to be followed by the actors ripping off their clothes and doing the deed. Because, like, some of those lines, I hate to say it, but they are, like, porn film level quality.
I wouldn't go that far. I would say the porn films have the better dialogue than this did.
Yes.
I'm just remembering that one clip that got popular on Twitter about the guy in the bathtub, and the porn star walks in saying, "Do you need a lifeguard?" And he's like, "I'm in the bathtub. There's a shark in there."
This isn't a beach. This is a bathtub. Yeah.
What?
You're crazy.
Okay.
All
right.
Yeah, that went viral for like a couple of years ago. But the point is,
I am not going to include that because we need money eventually on the video versions.
Yeah, but we're probably mostly going to be getting money from. Hey, you'd be surprised what people sponsor. All right.
I guess so.
But nah, like. I think this film had legs to work with, but there were production issues, as we elaborated.
But once again, that music is awesome. One thing
I want to deny that. Yeah.
I'm not gonna deny that either.
One thing I wanted to draw attention to was in the middle of the POV shots of Cropsey. There's the use of the heartbeat percussion that is pretty common in horror nowadays, but had yet to really be like codified.
Yeah.
And this is one of the better examples, I think, of that particular sound convention, because in every other horror movie, they hammer it like they set it at full blast, but there's no subtlety to it. It's like hammering a nail. But here they kind of muffle it a bit.
Yeah.
And they underscore it with all the synth trills. Also, I apologize for the ears of anyone listening to that particular clip there.
Yeah, I think another thing that worked against this movie is, like I said, it was heavily censored when it first came out, and oddly enough, apparently one of the reasons they censored it was because they were like, "Well, John Lennon just died," and I'm like, "What?"
What?
Yeah, that was apparently one of the MPAA's like.
Hold it.
Rewind.
Hold it. He died of a gunshot wound,
Yeah,
didn't he?
Yeah, he got shot.
And there's literally no gunshots in this movie.
Where did it come from?
Closest thing is a pea shooter and a flamethrower.
Yeah. So I don't understand that logic. John Lennon famously got murdered with gardening shears.
Yeah, no, it's like, no, people don't get murdered with lopers.
Yeah, I also find it very funny. In the credits, they credit the one.
That sounds like a Walk Hard scenario.
Yeah. Gotta pull up the guy's name again. But in the credits, they credit an actor for playing Cropsey for it. But the funny thing is, that's mostly for the close-up scenes. Because when I was reading up on this, apparently the director himself. Okay. Yeah, Lou David. So apparently this guy Lou David played Cropsey in the movie. But apparently for most of the film, the director himself played Cropsey, because you don't see his face that much in the film. And the director actually mostly played him because he was not satisfied with how people were holding the shears. He didn't think they were doing it in a creepy enough manner. So...
How do you hold gardening shears in a creepy manner?
I don't know, but that was a gripe. That was a gripe tone.
Oh, that's easy.
Yeah.
You hold them upside down like you're gonna jab down with a spear. That's freaky.
Yeah, but apparently for some reason nobody could do it the way that he wanted.
Look at the poster. That's how you do it.
Yeah. But apparently for some reason nobody could do it the way that Tony Malum wanted, and it was like...
Yeah, does that not freak you out, Aaron?
It's kind of creepy.
Not really.
It's kind of creepy.
I've seen worse.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
Yeah, because I'm even looking at this poster.
You forgot I'm the true crime junkie here.
Yeah, I'm even looking at this poster.
The true.
And, like, it's got, like, small print, like, mentioning Rick Wakeman's on there, and I'm just like, why didn't they lean into that? Like, I don't get it.
Yeah, you're the true crime junkie whose life kind of reads out like its own Friday the 13th novel in places.
Fair enough.
Apologies. That was a weird bit of sound engineering goofs there. Might edit that out. Anywho.
Yeah, point is, like, I don't get why they didn't lean into Rick Wakeman being on this, because, like...
Yeah.
Because, like, Yes was, you know, they weren't the most successful... They were successful in the U.S. Like, when you look at their, like, how their albums sold, like, Fragile went 2 times platinum in the U.S.
Now, back to the acting for a bit. I think we should expound upon the one sparkling gem in the middle of this desert, and that, of course, is Seinfeld cast member and comedy legend Jason Alexander.
Yes, playing Dave, who's, you know, like, he's supposed to be the funny guy. You know, he's supposed to be like the camp wisecracker and jokester. And guess what? He's actually funny.
And it's because they played into his strength, to Jason Alexander's strength, which has always been quick-witted delivery and blink and you'll miss it one-liners.
And can I be honest and say he's the only likable one in this movie?
Well, obviously,
100%. He's the only realistic character too.
Yeah, because he's the only likable character in this movie. Everyone else is either kind of a dumbass or an asshole, or both.
The first characters burn a man alive.
And one of them turns out to be one of the counselors who, like, literally had nothing happened to him except getting sent home from camp.
Also,
I just want to point out something. Only 5 years have passed.
So that means it would happen in 1976.
How much did he grow?
Yeah, like,
too.
There's no way he went from tween camper to borderline oldest member of the cast camp counselor.
Yeah, this guy's clearly, like, in his late 20s or 30s.
Like, I know they say smoking ages people, but not that much in that short of a time.
Although, to be fair, 80s.
80s.
Cocaine's a hell of a drug.
Yeah, but they also never show the guy smoking or anything.
I was just making an example.
I know.
He may have smoked off screen.
Point is, there's a lot of weird leaps of logic in this movie.
Like, you gotta really turn off your brain for this one.
Yeah.
More so than even the one with rock and roll furries.
Okay, so, like, here, let me pitch a scenario for you guys at home. Okay.
Sure,
so,
okay.
You are at a summer camp, and you go out on an overnight canoeing trip. Okay.
Yeah.
Pretty standard. You canoe a few miles. Sounds about right. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Yeah. You set up you just leave the canoes out because, well, yeah. I mean, you're in the middle of the woods, and
just tie your canoe to a dock or a tree.
Optionally, on the record of rowing, optionally merrily.
Yeah. Merrily, you may row along. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
But okay. So you wake up in the morning. A guy just had a fight with his girlfriend. She said she's felt unsafe with this guy. He says he has no idea where she went. All of your canoes went missing overnight. Just gone completely.
With the exception of one.
No.
Oh, wait, all the canoes were missing.
Oh, yeah.
The other ones
They
went
had
all
to
the
build
way
the
up.
raft.
All of them are gone. Just imagine that, people.
Yeah. So you go, okay, well, what do you do? Okay, here's my idea. Okay, guys, we only canoed a few miles out. Let's try to stick along the shore and just walk a few miles. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Seems like a logical idea to me. Seems like the safest bet to me. Would you agree, Aaron?
Yeah. I mean, the safest thing to do if someone goes missing is to not split up up.
Oh, well, before you get there, we're jumping a little.
Sorry.
Okay. No, it's okay. So, what I wouldn't do is build a makeshift raft, send all the just like a random group of teenagers off on the raft with neither of the counselors, and then just be like, "Oh yeah, you guys go get help." What kind of logic is that? Like, did you get this job? Like, I know that, like, hiring standards were more relaxed back then, but even then, I feel like there would be a thing on a questionnaire that's like, if trouble happens, should you send the campers off by themselves? And you would have to go on the questionnaire, no, I'm not a moron.
No, it's a question you ask during a job interview.
Yeah, but like I said, I feel like there's a test that they made you do. Even back then, they had to have given you a test to do a counselor. I mean, let's face it. You had to at least do training.
Some kind of training.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure they would have made it very clear, hey, if there's trouble, don't send campers off by themselves without a counselor.
Yeah.
These camp counselors are making Bulk and Skull look like professional bodyguards.
Yeah, and also there's only like 2 counselors shown and like the camp director, and it's like camps have way more counselors than that.
Yeah, especially when we show them in like the mess hall,
there's way like, more kids.
There's like 50 kids there.
Yeah, like it's clear that these are mostly the older campers that are like, they're more, they feel more confident in sending these ones out on a rafting trip. It's like, okay, you're mostly the older kids.
Yeah, they even said like the older kids are going on the rafting trip.
Yeah, and the younger kids are staying behind.
Still though,
all that makes sense to me.
However,
but like they don't show any other counselors at this camp.
Yeah, because even in the Friday the 13th movies, they had groups of counselors.
Yeah, they usually had around like 5 or 6 counselors.
Yeah.
Which sounds about right to me.
Yeah. I mean, the only camp I'd been to was golf camp, and that was only for like 3 days. But there were like a lot of people there, and like probably 10 counselors.
Yeah. And like, they do the typical thing. And one thing I will say I do feel a little bad about this movie for is it started production before even the first Friday the 13th movie. And then by the time it came out, Friday the 13th had already been out. Part 2 had just come out. And all of the reviews were like, shameless Friday the 13th knockoff.
That's not fair to this, honestly.
Fair.
I mean, in some ways it is. One thing I will say is I do like Rick Wakeman's score. But Manfredini said he based the tempo of the Friday the 13th score off of a heartbeat. This literally is a heartbeat score.
Yeah.
I can see how that in between the camp setting,
like I said,
you would go, oh yeah, this is Friday the 13th knockoff.
Like I said though, Wakeman's score deals a lot more in ambience than anything else.
Yeah. Like it's and he understands that a good horror film has to have kind of like a leitmotif.
Yeah.
And there's like that little like keyboard section that
little trill
and also just that little keyboard section that he plays for most of like the horror and suspense scenes. That plays in most of the scenes.
For context, Aaron drifted off for a second because I think my cat wants to be a podcast star now.
Oh hell yeah!
There's a little section underneath the door of the studio, just big enough for a cat, but she can't get under because we are blocking it off.
Yeah.
With paint cans.
But, man, like, I'm struggling to draw anything out from this movie. You know the phrase, like, getting blood from a stone?
Yeah.
That's what it feels like talking about this film, to be honest with you.
You know what? I can talk about how they're better bad slashers than this, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, I mentioned offhand that I might want to show you guys Terror Train for this show. Have either of you seen it?
Nope.
It's crap. It's bad. But, but it's got some things that make it interesting. For one thing, it's a New Year's themed slasher, believe it or not.
Okay.
Is that the one with Jamie Lee Curtis in it?
Yes, it is.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It's the one. It's set on a train. Everyone's in a costume party, so there's a vague mystery like who could it be? Could it be David Copperfield actually, because he's in this movie as the magician?
Okay then.
Okay.
Yeah, he's in this movie. The they set it up like he's the star guest at the party, like he's a famous magician. So it's basically just David Copperfield playing himself, but they set it up so he could be the killer, even though it's obvious who the killer is.
And I'm sorry, I think the biggest like what the heck moment to me in the entire film is our heroes are our big heroes who take down Cropsey are Alfred, the troubled kid who's like a voyeur pervert and keeps creeping on girls throughout the film. And the counselor who literally was the person whose entire fault this basically is.
Because after doing some reading for this movie, we realize, and it's sort of kind of revealed.
Yeah, that he was one of the kids who burnt Cropsey like 5 years ago.
Which, again, I know we've said this, but how much did he age? Is he a dog man?
Yeah, because like he was like
He's not a
he
good
had
boy.
to be like 15. He had to be like 15, 16 from the looks of him in that first scene. And yeah, no, it's like, oh, cool. I'm glad those are the two that saved the day. Like, why couldn't it have been
The creep and the murderer.
Yeah, it would have made more sense to have, you know,
Well, the creep and the arson.
the creep and the arsonist. When you could have had the person who kills Cropsey be like, you know, the girl counselor who was like one of the few decent people in that movie.
Yeah.
Or hell, give Jason Alexander a Lost Boys moment where he pops up.
Shows up at the last minute, saves the day.
Like,
yeah.
I love that movie so much.
Oh yeah,
It's
the ending's great. It's perfect.
I might put a spoiler marker just for that movie because
Just don't spoil the ending of the movie.
Fair enough.
Just don't spoil.
Don't spoil it.
I'm sorry. I like
What do you
gushing.
mean? Yeah,
I like gushing. That's all.
I know the moment you're talking about, the sudden ending, which is like, ah!
Yeah.
Yeah.
Give Jason Alexander. How awesome would that be?
Give him a funny, witty one-liner to end the movie on.
Yeah. Put out that flame for you, didn't I?
Yeah, something.
So,
Like, literally, and then, okay, so the police show up with a helicopter to rescue the campers and save them from the creep at the very end. You know,
all three of them
the
or
classic,
something.
the classic late cavalry
Yeah.
thing show up at the end.
and then
The helicopter lands. You know, like the lead female counselor, she throws her arm around like another younger camper who's crying, and triumphant score swells up. Cut the credits, right? That would make sense.
That's what you would think.
That's when you would cut the credits.
think.
But no, for some reason, it just cuts to a campsite where another camp is just telling the Cropsey. Another counselor is telling the Cropsey story, who
Around
looks
a
like a
campfire.
bootleg Roger Daltrey. And unlike the last time, nobody even seems like scared or fazed in the slightest by this story. They just kind of all
Yeah.
look like, okay, yeah, sure.
And then they do that thing where they cut to black on the last word of his sentence.
Yeah, as he does like he's gonna get you, and then it just like cuts black.
Credits.
And it's like, but we know he's dead. But we know he's dead. What is the point of this scene?
What a wet fart of an ending.
Yeah.
That's what it is. It's like hearing somebody fart in the middle of the theater.
Because it's not even like you have a big final scare at the end. You know, like let's talk some other classic horror film endings, like stuff that, like, granted, some of these will probably be spoilers, but they're common films.
Yeah.
Like, let's take the instance for the ending of Psycho. You know,
Yeah.
the slow zoom in on Norman Bates' face, you know?
Yeah.
It's eerie. Friday 13th, which this got confused, accused of ripping off, you know? You got, Jason jumping out of the lake,
Out of the lake.
the lake,
Out of the
yeah,
lake.
yeah. He's still out there. Nightmare on Elm Street. Well, it
Yeah.
came out after this, but still. Texas Chainsaw. You know, like, she looks at the back of the truck and just screams she like laughs maniacally, covered in the blood as it like slowly zooms in
What
on
it's
her, you
like?
know?
Yeah, she's out, but the Sawyers are still out there.
And she's clearly not doing great. You know, she's worse for
even-
wear.
Or even a more recent one in like Midsommar, where she's just like smiling into the camera at the end.
Yeah, like, what is the point of having some guy literally do like a childish, he's gonna get you? It's like, what?
I was half expecting him for that cut to black to cut back to him at the fire and him going jazz hands.
Yeah. Or don't have him say it so over the top. Be like, he's gonna get you, and then just zoom slowly back out because like
And fade.
because you know
do
they zoomed in through like the bushes, almost making it look like we're peeking
Yeah,
in.
don't do that fucking cut immediately to black thing. Build into it.
Suspense.
If you were gonna do that thing like he was clearly one of the survivors of the incident, have it zoom out.
That wasn't even it though. Because, like, I read I was confused by that, and I looked it up online, and it says, at another camp, other campers tell the story of Cropsy. And it's like, but why is this here?
Not to mention, getting back.
Unless they're trying to make it seem like that the events of this movie were real or something, which
No. Not to mention.
Or, like, the legend lives on, or, oh, this was all a story.
Either way, it doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't.
Mainly because this doesn't even have the curse explanation that Friday the 13th had, where Jason borders on supernatural. No. Cropsy's just a burnt
got
dude.
burned, and also the logic is odd because, like, he goes on a murder spree at another camp that just so happens to be where one of the people who burned him is, but they never do a scene where he, like, I don't know,
swears revenge or anything.
or like, you know, he kills someone who's like, oh my god, you were at the camp too. Like, he murders like someone else who was at the camp.
It's a cop out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, he just somehow knows to show up at this one random camp and start killing people.
Yeah, he's not a monster. He's a scarred dude.
Well, they do establish that he was a huge asshole, like, before he even got burned.
I mean, he's not supernatural, though.
No, but, like, they established he was a huge asshole, so I could buy him going on a murder spree.
Yeah, but I couldn't buy him being a presence at other camps, though.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense that he wouldn't just go back to Camp Blackfoot.
He'd be a local legend at most, not this urban folk monster that is the bane of every camp counselor.
Yeah, how would this story even spread? This would have been like a small incident that like probably would have gotten covered.
This is like backwoods shit.
Yeah, they would have buried that shit too. They wouldn't have like let that shit get out there that like this burning happened. The local news probably wouldn't have even reported on it that much.
It doesn't
back
even
then.
have the justification that Nightmare on Elm Street had, where fear gave Freddy power.
Yeah, he's just some guy.
He's just a dude with a pair of clippers.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just a dude with lopers who's kind of an asshole.
Yeah, and
Who
you know,
becomes a serial killer.
and that's probably the biggest weakness of this movie is most of the characters are just unlikable.
They're just assholes.
like normally it works with other slasher movies because like you have a likable lead who has a bit of a personality or even some character
Like
flaws.
Tommy Jarvis from Friday the 13th, once again.
Yeah, or even some character flaws. You know, like once again, like Alice in the first Friday 13th movie, she's a realistic character. She's a sweet girl. She is flawed. They established that, unlike most slasher girls who are like, you know,
Bimbos.
well, not the final girls.
Not the final girls,
Yeah.
no.
Well, unlike most slasher final girls who are very like blank, kind of characters.
Kind of blank slate.
Yeah, very puerile. Like, they establish she's had an affair with her. She's been having an affair with her boss.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she gets realistically frustrated and frazzled with her more, you know, less responsible camp counselors.
Mm-hmm.
The people in this are just kind of boring assholes.
Borderline sociopathic too, and
My biggest issue with this movie is, look, I know it would have led to the trope of the black guy dying first, but if anyone should have died first in this movie, it should have been
The orderly?
that hospital orderly who just, like, is talking about a burn victim like he's fucking Michael Myers or some shit.
yeah, it's
I know hospital workers generally have a dark sense of humor, but that's just fucked up. Like, they wouldn't even do that.
again,
Even back then, he would have gotten, like, reprimanded or fired.
it's called bedside manner.
Because he would have been like, he's clearly not trying to hide his distaste for this poor burn victim.
Perry Cox from Scrubs has more standards.
Yeah.
The hospital would have been like, hey, we've overheard other, like, you know, nurses and like, you know, like practitioners and just like patients, like hearing you gab about the dude in the burn ward, like he's
You
like,
can't be doing this.
that's not cool, man. And all he gets is grabbed by the arm and a scream, and then you think, okay,
now
I
he's
guess he
gonna die.
got killed. No, cut forward to 5 years later, and the doctors are just like, yeah,
He's alive.
well, we tried everything. Skin grafts failed.
Don't kill anybody.
Yeah, here you go.
Don't kill anybody.
Also, what health insurance does this guy have that he can be in the hospital for,
For
5
5 years. This film is set in America, we remind you.
Yeah.
And this was in the 80s before, like, Medicaid was a thing.
Yeah.
Reagan administration.
Well, this was even before
Before that.
Reagan, because Reagan didn't get into power until what, 84?
84, I think.
Yeah. So like,
Shows what I know about history. Sorry.
you also have like no logic there, because you don't have the excuse of, oh well, this is when Reagan just started to throw people who clearly had mental health problems out on the street and stuff. Like, I'm sorry, they would have taken like a few minutes, looked at the guy and been like, oh yeah, he probably needs to be committed. This guy has some serious, like,
Or at least give him a
issues.
psych eval at one point during those 5 years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, they just kind of go, okay, here you go, have fun.
Bye.
See
Bye.
ya. They literally say, oh, we'll see you in 6 months for a follow-up.
Yeah, what?
It's like,
That's a cop out.
it's
It's another fucking cop out.
this movie has weird leaps of logic. It's overall flawed. If you're going to check out anything from this movie, I don't know, maybe if you're looking for something else to throw on,
Get
like,
the soundtrack.
yeah, well, I was going to say, maybe if you're looking for something to throw on at, like, a Halloween party or for, like, a Halloween party playlist, yeah, take some tracks from this.
Or if you're going camping and you just have your laptop out and a router or something.
If you're gonna do that, just watch Blair Witch.
Or any horror movie that's themed around the woods or camping, because it'll probably be better than this one.
It's a good riff material, though. Just
Yeah, if you want to have a couple brews of your choice with some buddies and just rip into a slasher movie, this is a pretty solid one.
yeah, pretty solid one. You can vibe out to the soundtrack at least until the characters start talking.
You can chuckle at seeing young Jason Alexander with his lush curly hair.
I was gonna say.
That was the biggest detractor. Not like a detractor, but it's like we were like, that's Jason Alexander. Why does he have hair?
It's like, man, a few years down the line are gonna hit you hard, buddy.
It's gonna hit you like a fucking truck.
Yeah.
Didn't I say he looked kind of like a stretched out Tom Hanks with his hair?
Yeah. But solid. This is a solid C- of a slasher movie.
5 out of 10.
Yeah.
Yeah, 5 out of 10.
It's just it's so average.
I feel like we put more thought into this.
Than the entire
Cast and crew
Yeah.
put into this, honestly.
I mean, Tom
Yeah.
Savini had his gripes with it after filming started, like we said. You know, he was like, "What are we doing? I need more time for the makeup. You don't have more time for the makeup." Okay.
I would have honestly wanted him to be the killer, too.
Tom, can you help us come up with a new ending? No. I'm your special effects guy. No! I'm the makeup guy. Stop it.
I'm a makeup guy who you pay to be an occasionally cool or intimidating dude if you don't have actors, which you do.
I'm going home. I'm done. And yeah, no, that was maybe we should go home and be done for this episode. But
watch Dawn of the Dead.
Watch Dawn of the Dead. Watch Friday the 13th. Watch any other horror film. But yeah. So this has been The Burning. Next, we will have either our guest episode, which has yet to be determined what it will be, or we will have Richie's pick. What do you have for us, Richie?
Well, slashers are all well and good as far as setting the tone for the summer is concerned. However, I think we ought to take things in a different direction. And begin with a trip across the country to find a perfect wave. And then move further and further out of the country to different shores in a documentary that shows two surfers on a semi-satirical trip across the globe to track down the endless summer.
All right. See you next time.